Hello, this is Coach Tim Campsell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made as a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey to building their business. And because we know that achieving success in business is not something we can do on our own, we recognize the folks that have helped us excel along the way. I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from the local Noblesville area with us today. My guest has visited 49 of the 50 domestic states. He is proud of raising empathetic and kind children. Isn't that awesome? And he enjoys hanging out with his wife, Alicia. I love that as your favorite. Please join me in welcoming Don to the show today.
Thank you. Before I get into that, and I know those were really cliche, awful, oh my gosh, so like sarcastic eye roll. First of all, son of a teacher. So most of those was because my parents would travel all summer because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, my dad's a teacher too. I know that every parent says that, but my kids seriously conduct themselves so daggone well. And we do a lot of public things and they're really awesome. And three, my best friend, Alicia and I have been together since we've been 16. So sincerely, those were genuine answers, not just the BS. Oh, my kids are great stuff.
I love it. I love that you even want to make sure that we all know that you just didn't be cliched on us.
Yeah. He just gave the most cliche answers ever. Yeah. My weaknesses are I care too much. Yeah.
So Don, let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your personal story. Where were you born? Where you live? A bit more about your family and your hobbies.
Yeah, so lifelong Indianapolis resident, went to Perry Meridian High School. Like I said before, my dad was a teacher, which had a pretty profound impact on me. In a lot of ways, a lot of the career decisions I made were really, I guess deep down inside, I wanted to be a lot like my dad. Was able to travel a lot because of that, and that was a blessing. And then, was met my high school sweetheart, and we've been together ever since. We're not dating anymore. We're married. Just had a passion for education and later on, an interest in innovation and entrepreneurship as well.
Fantastic. And how old are your kids?
Oh, let's see. Ava just turned 21. Anna will be 18 somewhat soon, in June. And Grant is 12.
Fantastic. Awesome. So Don, I'm sure there must be some funny stories that your family likes to tell about you. Is there one that you'd be willing to share with us?
Oh, some of these stories I've asked that they not share anymore. But no, I think the one that really stands out to me is that, I got into a lot of trouble, and maybe one of the worst nights I've ever had. And when I was young, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was grounded for 3 months. But there was this girl in my class that I knew she was really, really, really a lot better looking than me. And she would say no, but I said, I'd promised myself that I'd at least ask. So I asked this girl out in the worst way possible. I said, listen, I'm grounded until April. I know you're going to say no, because this is stupid to even ask, but when I get ungrounded, you want to go out and get something to eat sometime. And she is my wife. So had I not gotten into an abundance of trouble and my parents would have grounded me for a long time, I would have never asked out my wife, because I'd have been more, I was always scared, but so yes, that is still my favorite story, because my students and my own kids have known that story of your worst night can be your best night if you choose it to be.
That's awesome. I think that might be the best story I've heard so far.
I mean, I could tell you more about it, but it's there's some details in there. You're like, Don, what were you thinking? Thus the reason I got grounded for 3 months. But
we'll get together offline.
So yes.
The details.
Yes, I can elaborate on the story more then. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Don, tell us about how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
I mean, really, the business, I still have this email saved. It just said, you got to watch this. And it was a link to then Dan Pink's TED Talk, which I think now is 11 years old, which I guess dates back at how long I've been doing this. But essentially that TED Talk was what motivates people. And he even talked about what Atlassian and most famously Google had done, and in the sense that they allowed people to pursue the things they were interested in, things that they wanted to master, feel they have autonomy, and ultimately have purpose. And I'm like, why am I not doing this in school? So I started, now there's kind of a term for it. Some people use 20% time or genius hour. But I started something and it really started to catch on, especially with C students, I'll say that, or maybe a little lower. And it started to, I started getting a lot of requests of like, could you help us out? And started an LLC around it, started to consult with other schools, started working with other teachers. And that had a big turnout, I guess. And then that then allowed me to write a book, which I'm still to this day surprised that, I thought my mom would buy a copy and that would be it, but it did better, which by the way, my mother never bought a copy. She expected a free copy.
Of course.
And then that then led to also the nonprofit we run now, which is funny because you're like, well, you don't really run a business. Yeah. It's way harder than a business. It's incredibly difficult. But luckily we have a great team. But yeah, I mean, literally all of it started around with an uncomfortableness of what we're not doing in education. That is not to say that all education is bad. It's not. It's just, it's time allocation and really opportunity cost. There are certain things that we do again and again and again and again, even though we've proven mastery. And yet the things that we could work on or should double down on, we don't, which is why I think the sports is the best metaphor. If LeBron James were still in school and he's already passed basketball 101 and he's spending all of his time working on his golf swing, that's an incredibly huge opportunity cost.
Right.
Like if he passes golf and says, look, you've done the minimum, you're good, you don't need to take golf anymore. Great. Now you can really focus on what you're good at, which is basketball. So I kind of saw that as a need in education and decided to run with it.
Awesome. So what's the name of your book?
Pure Genius, Creating a Culture of Innovation. It's, I don't want to call it a memoir because it was a lot of this is what we did and this is what we learned in those first couple of years. Book 2 should be done soon because it's been 7 years since and there's been a lot of things in between, but yeah, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all that good stuff.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about the company and what do you guys do and what's the name of it and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So equally branded. So actually fun fact, I wanted to buy the URL startuped.com. And at the time they parked it for a lot of money. So it was StartedUP because education was in the middle of a startup. Get it?
Nice.
So I started that. And really at the beginning, it was consulting services for other schools. And then, some, workshops for teachers and things of this nature. Along then came a former student of mine. Actually, he was just about to graduate and he more or less said, you're stressing yourself out by going to one school at a time. Let's digitize your content. Let's work on some things. And so he helped me out quite a bit and Hunter's been with me ever since. So and then which then led to the nonprofit, which, all of the IDC appreciated all of our work and the job I did as a teacher. And so we ended up launching Innovate WithIN, which is the state of Indiana's entrepreneurship competition, and then program and curriculum for the state.
Fantastic. And you do all this as well as your full-time teaching job, correct?
So that was the ultimatum I was given. I couldn't do it all. I actually have a little bit of survivor's guilt. I had retired from teaching in 2019.
Okay.
So in June of 2019. So what? I missed the pandemic by 6 months or something like that, or I don't know. I've always liked to live up to a challenge, and some people are like, man, you got out at a good time, and I hate to say that that's correct. And at the same time, my heart hurts for a lot of teachers and students that are clearly, not operating under optimal conditions.
Right. Yeah. So Don, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it. And what's the impact that they had on you?
Oh, man, there's so many. And I hate to go back to stories of my dad. But I'll give a you're not living up to, and then I'll give an encouraging one. So I'll bookend this. I remember it was my sophomore year of high school, and my dad is a big fan of, so he was an industrial arts teacher back in when industrial arts were offered, and then later became a guidance counselor. But we were talking about what options I had as a sophomore in high school. And all the options he brought to me had nothing to do with college. And I remember him saying, I'm like, Dad, I thought you were going to pick up some stuff from, IU, Purdue, or whatever. And I thought there might have been a tear in his eye. And he goes, it pains me to say this, but you're not going to go to college, son. And I was like, and the thing is, like, my sister was perfect and I love Kathy, but she didn't mess up ever. She had perfect grades. And I could tell the sense of disappointment on his voice and on his face. So that was something that got my butt in gear for sure. And I appreciated that he said those things. And then I think the other one was just my wife. I was trying all these new things in class, and my students were starting to do extraordinary things. And she was kind of like, you should write these things down and, possibly write a book. And honestly, the book propelled everything. Like technically I wrote a book before I had a company. I was just kind of independently going to conferences and speaking. The book drove everything. And so my wife saying, I really think you're onto something, you should do this, was really one of those catalysts.
That's awesome. So Kathy didn't get grounded for 3 months ever?
Ever. Matter of fact, one time she got a speeding ticket and she didn't tell my parents. And she sat on that secret for a couple of hours, and I hope she listens to this. And we were at the dinner table and she starts crying. She's like, I can't take anymore, Dad. I got a speeding ticket today. And my dad's like, okay, it's yours to pay, but don't speed.
Right.
That was how, again, man, my sister is wonderful. I love her to death, but yeah, it made the second born youngest thing a little bit tougher. However, if you had her on the show, she'd be like, wait, I had to blaze that trail for you.
Right. Yeah.
So she may argue with that.
Fair enough. Right. So Don, what's the biggest learning that you've had as a business owner?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to answer this in the form of a nonprofit, because honestly, that's been harder.
Yeah.
And I know this is probably a cliche answer that a lot of people have told you, but getting over the fact that I'm not a CEO, but I am now. I'm just a teacher. And I say that with some sensitivity, because teachers are freaking amazing and they're smart, but knowing how to run a business is something that I did not know how to do. And quite frankly, still don't really. I get a lot of advice. I've got a great team. I have now a board that allows me to come up with what I'm not doing well and all that good stuff. And so if it weren't for those things, I don't know what I would do. So that is the hardest thing I had to overcome is that imposter syndrome is what people are calling it.
Yeah. The thing I talk to people about is, so it's not cliche at all, because I think it's the number one challenge for business owners. So we put it into the terminology of the school system teaches us how to be employees, right?
Yes.
And for those of us who decide we want to go out on our own, we have this incredibly overwhelming reality of, I don't know how to be a business owner. And so one of the things we talk about is business owners have to go through a re-education of learning how to become a business owner, right? Because no fault of the school system, but it's just not the way it was originally designed, right? In terms of setting people up to be employees, not business owners.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and then a complete, you should be mortified if you're messing up or failing. This A to F mentality, and listen, on as far as business development and savviness at the beginning, I'm earning straight Fs. But luckily this didn't go on my permanent record, right? I mean, yes, I had time to adjust or just ask out loud of what am I doing wrong? And then quite frankly, and I'm gonna pay homage to people that may at times say these things in a cliche way, but having some empathy and then being radically transparent was important of I relied on some of my LinkedIn friends to go, because I'd ask them questions like, I have no idea what I'm doing on this. And I'd have people reach out and go, all right, let me spend a little time with you. And so, and I still like, man, a lot to learn here. Matter of fact, we're gonna go through a new growing phase that we've been asked to grow, and it's still insanely difficult to sift through.
That's awesome. Isn't it interesting that we all learned how to walk by failing, right? By falling down. Yet that was completely acceptable. And then when we become adults, for some reason, it's like frowned upon, right? We have to hide it from everyone. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, and then why aren't we taking that same approach in school? You know, like nobody, and I mean nobody, achieves on their first go round, and we have to take the same look at it, and then quite frankly also ask ourselves, if you do take something on the first try and you get an A on it, was it a challenge?
Oh yeah.
Or are you going through the motions?
Yeah. So Don, that's a great segue. Tell us a little bit more about what you do through your business and nonprofit, and how are you helping others?
So I would like to think that we're at minimum changing mindsets. You know, we had 2,300 students last year go through the process, where we have curriculum starts them off with as simple as see a problem as an opportunity. A lot of teachers were using it. It was completely free. And we were giving examples of, you know, what are some problems in your neighborhood, community, school? If you listen to those problems, are you seeing it as an opportunity? And what could you do? Could you form a team? What skill sets do you have? What would be an MVP of it? And instead of coming up with a $10 billion app idea, what would be a $5 solution that might be able to gain some insights and grow? And then from there, like, we had to sift through a lot of different pitches, but we always asked, are you solving a problem? And is it validated? And so even get kids to know about market validation, or asking, you know, opinions or surveys. So on to round two, those top 10 per regions. We have 9 in our state. Once you do that, then we set up those students with a host of mentorships and wraparound services. And then every region we had was sponsored by university. So all of our regional pitch competitions are on college campuses. Nice. And then from there on out, we went ahead and had that regional competition, and we would then name obviously a top winner in the state, and then take those students on a trip. This year it's going to be to Tampa Bay, Florida, have students meet incredible people. And at every single step of the way, we kept asking them, you know, did you validate it? Are you meeting with people in a day and time where we're talking about, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Fine. Like, who do you know? And are you getting, you know, that mentorship? And ultimately we're a lot of these students are scaling real businesses. Last year's, these students had sales in all 50 states and Europe.
That is awesome.
And they made fishing lures, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Their problem, they were so that's just, we had some people that were like trying to work with burn victims, and we had some people that were working with in hiring practices. Their problem was most soft plastic baits don't come in the right color combinations for Southern Indiana.
Okay.
And they did, but I love that, because you don't, like, so many pitch competitions, you have to be solving world hunger or the climate crisis. Yeah. And like, in reality, at age 16 or 17 or whatever, it's you know, you're a ways away.
Yeah.
Starting off with a simple idea, we just loved it. And I wasn't a judge. I didn't have any say in the matter, but I liked the fact that they were solving a problem that was important to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Don, we know that business success happens or doesn't happen in isolation, right? And so tell us, what's one of the biggest challenges that you've had throughout the years, and who's a fellow business owner that came alongside you and helped you get through that?
I'll start with JT McCormick. JT, as a friend, was on our board. He actually, JT's story in and of itself, I don't want to steal his thunder, but has based, I think, a GED equivalency, but went on to scale and grow. Actually, was just Austin's CEO of the year. I'm really proud of him. But learning how to grow and scale of what we're doing, but then also knowing the difference between having a family and having a team.
Hmm.
And actually, this was also in a book I just read not too long ago, I think by Reid Hoffman. The Indianapolis Colts let go of Peyton Manning. They loved him like a family member, I'm sure of it. But at the end of the day, the Indianapolis Colts are not a family.
Hmm.
They're a team.
Right.
And so when the Indianapolis Colts said, we need a guy that can be able to complete passes and survive and not have, be injured, the high likelihood of being injured, and they let go of him. I think the same kind of approach is that I had to learn how to attract and recruit people to be a team.
Right.
And I am way too teachery, where everybody is special, and I love everyone, and luckily, like, we've not ran into like issues of having to let a lot of people go. It's just that it's that recruitment process of, don't throw around the word where we're a family. Families don't get fired. Well, actually, they probably do, but I mean, like, set the expectation as you're forming a team. And you've been brought in to complete this many passes and not throw too many interceptions. We will tolerate some, interceptions, but here's your expectations.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I've worked with some clients who were family, and they've had to fire each other, and that didn't go over so well. So I like your analogy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if you had to pick three people throughout your business journey that you're most grateful for being there to help you with the growth you've achieved, who are those three people, and how have they been helpful to you?
I'm going to shamelessly name drop, because some of the success we had was because of the name drops. When I told you I watched that TED Talk from Daniel Pink, back 10 years ago, I didn't know that he was a pretty big deal. And I thought, hey, I like this guy's TED Talk. I'm going to give him a call and see if he'll help me start this class. And he did.
Nice.
And so his endorsement went a long way. It really made a lot of things happen. So much so that, like, we started doing a podcast, and some of the guests I got, quite frankly, were because, I heard you did an interview with Dan or Tim Ferriss or some people like that. So Dan is the guy that kicked it off a lot of it. Secondly, also kind of a name drop is oh my gosh, my brain, I was just about ready to say Jeff Hoffman. I think that he should be a household name. He was one of the co-founders of Priceline.com. He has helped other people all over the world set up businesses. The guy is selfless, and he poured in a lot of time to my students and myself. So Jeff Hoffman would come right in there. I'll have a top four, because I can't forget the fourth, but third would be Tina Seelig. She was a professor at Stanford. Same thing, right around the Dan Pink era, I reached out to two people. Dan was one, and then this lady, Tina Seelig, at the Stanford Entrepreneur Ventures program, and D School was another. Her books are astounding. What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20 and Ingenious are two books that I would recommend to anybody and everybody. And then lastly is Hunter. Hunter was my former student, and he was the one that said, let's do this together. Let's figure it out together. And it was a really unique experience to be a teacher and have, at the time, a 19 or 20-year-old in the helm and trying to figure this all out.
That's awesome. So as you, changing gears here a little bit, as you think to the next 3 to 5 years, Don, what do you think are the biggest challenges that you're going to face to reaching your goals, and who are the types of people you're going to need in your business to help you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, like, without a doubt, it's building and scaling what we already have. We're getting some requests for it already, but scaling it to the level I think we're going to get is going to take some advice. That's going to take some people that have maybe had some successful exits. I've got a really, really good friend right now in Florida who has been with 2 ed tech companies, and he's been valuable in the sense of understanding how to, grow and scale something under quality conditions and not just look for a cheap exit, right? To have integrity, to grow something that you're proud of. And really, I have zero aspirations of exiting. Like, I want to do this for the rest of my life, or till I'm too senile and I can't remember people's names like I did 5 minutes ago. And honestly, with each given day, like, I'm getting scared. I actually talked to some of my friends, like, we not too long ago had like our 25th anniversary or something like that. And we're creeping up on 50. And I asked them, like, does anybody else here like forget why you walked into a room? And, like, everybody universally, like, oh, all the time. Because I'm telling you, it's starting to scare it's starting to scare me, because I have so many decisions to make. I have so many things on my mind that I'm forgetting people's names that I've known for years. And it's starting to freak me out.
Yes. Yeah. But there's only so much information we can store in our head at a time, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the challenge of all this, is that, again, I told you about that imposter syndrome. Well, then that other voice in your head of like, am I too old for this, is starting to.
Well, I can certainly assure you that you're not too old for this, because I'm a little bit older than you. And so if I said you were too old, then that would mean that I am, and that would just be wrong.
Logging off. Yeah.
So Jim Rohn, one of my favorite authors, says that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So Don, as you think about that, is that something that is exciting, something that makes you nervous? What's your perspective?
No, this is among my favorite things to plead, especially with young people. I in the beginning, this class was called Innovation and Open Source Learning. The innovation part came at the beginning of the year, where I was teaching you how to think for yourself, how to backward design, how to set metrics, how to hold yourself to those metrics. The open source learning part was probably more paramount, in the sense that, and actually Tim Ferriss wrote about this in 4-Hour Workweek, challenge yourself with the people that you want to reach out to and you really want to hear from, not for the, can I pick your brain BS, right? But for the, I could learn a lot from you. Like, how can I connect with you? How can I, and so learning from people and surrounding yourself with the best is the single greatest thing you can do. Matter of fact, I remember I loved my kids were here. They'd roll their eyes because they've heard the story so many times, but my junior year in college, I learned of an internship, read about it, thought it was too good to be true. Shout out to the good old days at Indiana Business Modernization and Technology Corporation, IBMT. I call up, and I am that old that they didn't have an email yet. And I said, hey, I read about your internship. Yeah, it's filled. Thank you. And I said, that's okay. I'm still intrigued by what you guys do. Indiana Business Modernization and Technology Corporation. I would love to spend a day with you guys. In what area? Well, in kind of the modernization / public relations / media relations realm. All right, I'll transfer you to Bob. Bob picks up, we don't have an internship. I understand. I still think what you guys sounds remarkable. I just want to see it for myself. May I come and visit you? I don't know. I'll buy you lunch, sir. Oh, now a 20-year-old is offering to buy you lunch. And he's like, you know what? Come on down. I say all that. Halfway through, I'd been shouting him, asking a bunch of questions. By the time lunch rolls around, he's like, you're not buying me lunch. But I really am impressed. You want to come back? And I said, yeah, actually, there's a lot more I want to see and ask. A year and a half later, I'm selling suits at a department store while waiting for some other job applications to come in. Bob Fryer calls and he says, where are you at? And I'm like, hey, and he goes, do you remember me? I said, yeah. He says, why haven't you shown up? And I said, I didn't know there was an offering. And he goes, well, yeah, we've been waiting on you to follow up. I figured if you wanted to spend by the way, I ended up like coming back 3 times. Okay. And so he says, yeah, when do you want to start? He says, Don, I could hire somebody I don't know, or I could put my trust in a guy that on 3 different occasions came here to learn more.
Wow.
I would recommend that to any 16-year-old 15-year-old, whatever, right now to identify your dream job. You don't have to stay there forever. And say, may I shadow? May I work for free? May I learn from you? You're at the head. There is no resume for that. Right. You're at the top of the spot.
Yes. Love it. What a great piece of advice for folks who are, aspiring to get out and learn and figure out what they want to be when they grow up, is just go and offer someone lunch. Wow. Yeah. So Don, last question here. If something catastrophic was to happen in the business today, who's the first person you'd call, and what would that conversation be?
My board, because I have an obligation to by law. So it would be my board. And I think my first line would be, so you'll never believe what I got myself into. Hopefully soften the blow. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be my board. On the for-profit side, it would be Hunter of like, yeah, so I just did our financials and here's the thing. So yeah. Those would be the first two people.
Awesome. So Don, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people that have come alongside of you in your journey. If they were all here on the show today, what would you like to say to them? Oh,
a heartfelt, I'd be a very still passionate educator that would have been preaching things, but would not have been practicing them. And because of the mentors that I've surrounded myself with, for their relentless, you should do this, go do it, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So a big hearty thank you. And I really, that's one thing I really appreciate about your show is that, yeah, it bugs me. I'm like, well, I'm a self-made man. No, you're not. You're not. I mean, like, and even if you had the worst parents in the world, they allowed, actually, JT McCormick, who I was telling you about, one of my favorite mentors, his childhood is the stuff of a bad movie. Like, it's horrible, but he takes away of like, that made me who I am. So it's disrespecting your teachers. It's disrespecting your parents, good or bad. You aren't here by yourself. You are here due to a lot of circumstances that I have no doubt took a lot of hard work, but there's a lot of lessons along the way. And I think that's the other thing we're trying to teach to our students is that we want you to be successful. Just don't be a jerk about it.
Right. Yeah. There's enough of those people in the world, right? We don't need to be creating it more.
Well, and ultimately it's bad for business.
Yeah.
The guy that's the jerk, I can think of a handful of celebrities we just want to go away. And as soon as they have one bad movie or one bad album, you are wishing them to go away. Meanwhile, they're really kind, nice. I mean, you know how many bad movies Tom Hanks has had? I'm being dead serious. He's had some bad ones. Everybody loves Tom Hanks because he's a nice person. Yeah. It's good business sense to be a good person. I mean, it's good just because it's good, but acknowledging that you have had help and you have had, is just good for you. Humility goes a long way.
Yeah. I read an article on this topic the other day that the more humble we are about the fact that others have helped us, it actually puts us in a position to be able to accelerate our business, because now we then program ourselves to be looking for more and more help.
Yes. Yeah. And that builds so much trust among the people you're working with as well, or even the people that they're helping you, and they feel better about helping you if you acknowledge it. Shocker, right?
Yeah, right. The whole idea of creating a culture where people want to be a part of as opposed to have to be a part of, and then they end up doing more and working harder because they enjoy what they're doing and they enjoy being part of that overall culture and the difference that the company is making. And in that world, as you've already mentioned earlier, is we tend to be more forgiving of mistakes that happen when the big picture is this is a great place to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It goes a long way.
So Don, thank you so much for being on the show today, sharing your insights, recognizing the folks who have helped you along the way. Appreciate your time today.
No, I appreciate being on your show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So to everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to Self-Made is a Myth with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Yeah, please help us to spread this movement by liking the show and posting it on your social media. And to join us, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.